The podcast you are about to listen to contains at least one of the following: strong language, disturbing topics, abusive opinions, generally things that aren't appropriate for little kids or overly sensitive people. So, if any of that stuff's going to get your nose out of joint, this is your chance to turn it off. Welcome to I Had to Say It, the podcast where I not only say the things I need to say, but the things I think you need to hear. And your feelings, they're not a factor. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I Had to Say It. So we're going to start out, as we do, by saying to Josh, B-Word, Iceman, Jason, Miss Aaron, Mike, Tabby, Javier, Fitz, McShane, El Jefe, El Devil, and El Morte, the guys at the Weathered Report, and our newest member, Billy G. Welcome aboard, Billy. Nice to have you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the support. Thank you guys for everything. Okay, so in a little light housekeeping, just wanted to thank Jason from Horrible Designs and Ken Madden of Mad K Studios for coming by to the little discussion on Saturday night about the launch of the spice brand that I'm working on. Gave me a lot of food for thought. I really appreciate your guys' input. I was kind of hoping to get a few extra people in there, but if I could only have two people, those are two good guys to have, you know? And I understand it was kind of short notice and everybody's got their own lives and everybody's busy, so I am going to be going forward with this project. It is the plan. I got a few numbers to crunch real quick, and we're going to start out with the Kickstarter probably end of the month-ish. I don't want to get things rolling too. I want to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed before I start it. I don't think I probably am not going to initially be able to set up multiple tiers because after a lot of debate and consideration and discussion, I think I'm probably just going to start out initially with one flavor. So I can't really give multiple different gifts out there. So they'll just be like a kind of a buying out of the first batch arrangement, I guess, for the first flavor. And if I get positive feedback and people like it and people think it's worthy, I will start trying to spool up the other flavors. But we're going to start with the, I don't know, I have to come up with a good name for it. I'm open to suggestions, but it's just kind of a general purpose seasoning blend that I make. I think it's delicious. I think you guys will love it too. So that's kind of the plan. I still have to get some feedback from the co-packing company in terms of volume and packaging and other behind the scenes tedium shit that needs to be figured out. And once they get back to me with those numbers, I will know what the numbers are I need to start with. And then we'll get the ball rolling. So hopefully they get back to me in the next day or three and I'll have some information so I can get everything staged and ready to go. And then we'll do a social media blitz to try and get as much awareness out there as possible, and all the likes and retweets and reposts and shares will be super appreciated. Or even if you don't want to commit a financial assistance, that would be a huge help to me just to get the word out. So, yeah, that's all the housekeeping, other than, like I said, welcoming Billy G to the ranks of the Patreon / Buy Me a Coffee supporters. Thank you so much again, Billy. I appreciate you coming aboard. And to all my long-standing patrons and Buy Me a Coffeeans and donators and supporters of the show, I appreciate it, guys. I definitely want to do good things for you guys, and hopefully this will be the next step in that process. All right, so this is actually going to be a fairly abbreviated episode this week. I spent several days last week, when this episode drops, it'll be last week anyway. This past week. Anyway, context is eluding me at the moment, but ultimately I was under the weather for a couple of days. Honestly, still not feeling 1,000%. Just nothing specific, nothing I could put a finger on, just was really, really run down. I don't know if it was seasonal or if it was viral, but I wasn't didn't have a real elevated fever or any problems like that. I was just fucking exhausted. I was unconscious for 32 out of 48 hours, basically. And yeah, so I may have missed some events in the world. Like I said, I'm still not 100%, so I'm really kind of functioning on fumes and spotty information at this point. I've been out of the loop for a couple of days, and honestly, in certain regards, it was actually kind of therapeutic. It was very very nice to unplug for a couple of days and just crash. And then between Mother's Day and the stuff I needed to get done over the course of Saturday prior to having the sit down roundtable, I haven't really had a lot of time to properly go into the events that I missed during the week. So I don't really have as much fuel as I normally would for shit to rant and rave about, but I do have something I've been thinking about. One of the things I have seen in my little forays here and there onto the socials is they're still talking about the bird flu pandemic. Now, I have thoughts on this. So yeah, sorry, I'm not going to be talking about the man versus bear and how utterly ridiculous I think some of this shit is, or what kind of a commentary I think it is on society that so many women are picking the bear. Okay, no, you know what? I've just started with it, so I do have to give my 2 pennies on this. Now, well, I understand that women have had to deal with a lot of really shitty traumatic experiences over the course of their existence, and there are a lot of really shitty, awful human beings out there. From a purely logical and objective standpoint, the woman versus man conversation, apparently I can't talk today either. The man versus bear conversation is missing a lot of key elements. First of all, the same people that are going to say, well, there's guys, not every guy's going to be a horrible molester, and women are saying they would rather take the chance of getting slaughtered by a bear than possibly getting raped. And I understand the mentality behind it, but again, if we're looking at things from a purely logical and realistic standpoint, the chances of you dying are a lot better if you're lost in the woods with a bear than if you're lost in the woods with a guy. I mean, yes, there's a lot of shitty guys out there. And you know what? There's a lot of more shitty guys out there now than there were when I was a kid, when I was a young man. And I say that's directly due to the lack of parenting, the absolute horrific social skills that are imparted upon young people. So a lot of people that are actually responding to this thing are young enough where they've had to deal with really sorry excuses for men. So they have a tainted well and base, but also kind of makes you think where maybe you could have showed some better choices in who you were hanging out with and socializing with, and what kind of quote-unquote men you are basing your discussions off of are based off of your personal interactions with people and the people you have gotten your life experiences with. So, and I'm not trying to, victim blame or any of that other shit. I acknowledge that a lot of women are very uncomfortable around men. But the way I look at things is, again, maybe you should reassess some of your life choices and who you spent your time, your formative years around. But also, why did you not take those experiences and better yourself to the point where it really wouldn't matter if you ran into a bear or a fucking man in the woods, because you were capable and well equipped to defend your fucking self? Self-reliance, independence, those sorts of things. Things that I generally stress across the board for fucking everyone to get on board with. If you're carrying a piece, you don't really have to worry about if you run into a man or a bear in the fucking woods, because you can take care of the situation your fucking self. So that's kind of my take on the whole thing is, why are you so worried that you're going to find yourself in a position where you're either going to be at the will and disposal of a random stranger that you run into the woods or a fucking wild animal? It's a really stupid fucking question. Why would you put yourself into that position, and why would you allow yourself to be put into that kind of position without the means or wherewithal to take care of yourself? And just for the ladies who think I'm being a prick, you're a lot more capable of defending yourself against a man than you are against a 900-pound fucking bear. Now, if it's a little cute black bear, yeah, you might be okay. If it's a fucking grizzly bear, you're going to get your head knocked off your fucking shoulders and you're going to get eaten. That's all there is to it. So why wouldn't you pick the guy and then be able to, kick him in the nuts or fucking punch him in the throat or gouge his fucking eyes out? You got much better odds against a guy than you do against a bear. So if something horrible is going to happen to you, wouldn't you want to be in a situation where you could I don't understand the logic behind, I'd pick the bear, no doubt. Well, yeah, you have the survival instincts of a fucking lemming. I'm not trying to minimize the shitty men on the planet, because yeah, there's plenty of them. but I'm a pragmatist. I always have been. I always will be. So I always look at things from the perspective of how could I best prepare myself and how can I best deal with a situation? If I'm out in the woods, do I want to run the chance of running into some dude, or do I want to run the chance of running into a fucking wild animal? Well, if I run into some dude, I'm going to be a lot more comfortable with my interpretations of how another human being is going to act and behave, and I'm going to be a lot more leery of what they're doing as opposed to some wild animal that I have no fucking experience with, so I'm not going to be able to interpret its moods or any kind of warning signs or triggering behaviors that I might do that are going to set this motherfucking thing off and make it try and fucking turn me into bear shit. So, yeah, that's my thought on that. So, man versus bear. If you pick a bear, I understand what you're trying to say about men, but at the same time, you're a fucking idiot because, again, what are you going to do against a fucking bear? At least against a guy, you got a fighting chance. I mean, I know plenty of women that would give most of particularly soy-flavored motherfuckers that, are out there nowadays, they would give them a run for their money, if not a square ass whipping. If my wife was out in the woods and she ran into some random dude, I'm pretty sure he's going to be, if he manages to do anything bad to her, he's going to pay for it in fucking blood. There's no two ways about it. And that's just because she's mean. I mean, I love her dearly, but yeah, she has the capacity to be a mean motherfucker and to hurt a person. And, yeah, so, plus, I generally try and encourage her to have a gun on her, but that's a whole nother conversation. So, anyway, again, I didn't want to devolve too deeply into that, but whatever. Anyway, so back to the other thing I was thinking about. So, one of the things I have been, at least peripherally aware of that's going on is they're talking about the next upcoming pandemic, because obviously it's an election year, so there has to be something that, throws a monkey wrench into the situation. And we've got Mike Lee and a couple other politicians in Washington that, of course, are on the Republican conservative side, because that's the only place where this kind of thing comes from, where they're trying to actively pass a bill that's going to require identification and proof that you are legally allowed to vote in federal elections. And the left is, of course, losing their shit. Well, it's already illegal to vote, and you forcing people to prove that they have a right to vote, and this is discriminatory, and it's racist, and it's bigoted. Well, and they're not doing it because it's already illegal. Well, if it's already illegal and you don't have a problem with it already being illegal, why do you have a problem with proving that you have the right to do what you're doing and not doing something illegal? There's a lot of hypocrisy coming on that. Now, on the other side of that, too, a lot of us who were calling this earlier on were saying that the left was going to try and flood the registration rolls, and now it has passed the House, and I think it's in the Senate or vice versa. I forget who did it first, but there is now a bill out there to adjust the members of Congress and the number of electoral college votes based on the censuses and including illegal immigrants. Literally exactly what I said a few weeks ago they were going to try and do with this bullshit. It has now passed out to where it's gone from one House of Congress to the other House of Congress. I forget which way it's going because brain not work good. But it passed without a single Democrat voting against it. It is now completely in the hands of the other House to try and kill it, to stop the complete heavy loading of all these deep blue areas with more representatives, more electoral votes, which will completely skew the results of the election. And it's one of those, yeah, you're doing this to fucking load the ballot and cheat. There's no non-confrontational way to say it. That is what it is. But again, not the thing I was thinking about most of. The thing I've been thinking about most of is, and this is going to be Aaron's little conspiracy corner here, where they are now talking about the depopulist motherfuckers in the WHO and all the globalist motherfuckers and all those Davos shit stains and the green cult are talking about massive population culling outbreaks and pandemics, and now they're starting to spool up the bird flu narrative, and they're saying that there are 70 people in Colorado that currently have tested positive for avian flu that has made the jump from cattle, that made the jump from chickens on the farms, and now our food supplies are potentially contaminated. And this comes on the heels of all these people trying to develop lab-grown meats and all this other nonsense because, oh, those are safe because they're cultured. And now, I'm not for overly government regulation and interference in any form of commerce, and I don't want the government telling anybody how they can and can't live their lives. If you want to eat Petri dish grown shit, I think you should have the right to do it. So I don't think it's right that states, because a couple states have actively passed bills to ban the sale of lab-grown processed meat. Now, I'm not completely on board with that. Do I believe you should be aware of what you're eating? Yes. Do I believe if you're being fed lab-grown processed meat, they should be forced to disclose that to you? Hell yes. I believe in informed decisions. That was one of my biggest problems with the fucking mandates for the jabs was there was no informed consent. There was no basis to make your decisions on. It was get this because we said so. And I always had a problem with that. I also have a problem with you have to eat the lab-grown meat because that's your only option. And I have a problem with you have to eat the lab-grown meat because we didn't tell you you're eating it. Those two things are not acceptable. But if you want to eat the fucking, Petri dish meat, that's your prerogative. That's your right. And, God, man, for somebody who said I only had something small to say, I keep derailing my original train of thought. So, yeah. But the depopulist motherfuckers that want us to eat the bugs and own nothing and be happy so they can own everything and be happier because they'll still be eating steak, they are now pushing the avian flu narrative, saying that avian flu is going to potentially be the next pandemic, which they were talking about 4 years ago during the last pandemic, where they're talking about disease X and all this other outbreak. Immediately, all the big pharmaceutical companies are saying, oh, well, we can have a vaccine ready for this in 4 to 5 months, as AstraZeneca has been pulled basically from every market on the planet at this point because they have come out and said, oh, yeah, you do get blood clots after you take our mRNA shots. I'm not going to call them vaccines because they're not fucking vaccines. They don't prevent anything. They don't stop anything. They don't do anything beneficial to the people that see them. They are gene therapy. We, as the unhappy people who took the shots to keep our jobs and regret it horribly, I'm still kicking myself in the ass for not going out and spending the money to get a fake vaccine card. I really wish I would have done it. I regret every day that I allowed myself to become a fucking hamster because I didn't want to take the chance of losing my job because the fat jelly-filled fuck muppet of a governor here was mandating vaccinations for certain lines of work, and I happen to be in a business that is considered healthcare adjacent or healthcare related, so we were subject to the mandates, and it was way, way, way hard for me to get the religious exemption paperwork filed because they deliberately made it that way here, and it was a matter of I finally got a job that I really like after a huge slump for several years, and I didn't want to lose it, and it was stupid, and it was selfish, and I regret it to this fucking day. And if they try and force another jab, I am not going to fucking take it. There's no boosters, no nothing, and I'm staying that way. I'm not anti-vax. I'm not opposed to vaccinations if they actually fucking work. But experimental gene therapy, I'm not really backing it. Every time I get a cough or a cold or a fucking headache, I start questioning, is this the one? Every time I go a little too hard on chest day and I'm fucking achy the next day, I'm paranoid that I'm having a fucking heart attack. And realistically, that's probably going to be my mindset for the rest of my natural fucking life, which is probably going to be more abbreviated than it would have been had I just said, fuck it, I'll be unemployed. So, take that for what it's worth. That's just my paranoia. But this does feed into where my main thought for this episode was going, which was, okay, so now they're talking about this avian flu outbreak, which could be the next global pandemic, which, again, if you go back several months, which people with the memory of goldfish nowadays probably don't remember, but there was talk that the same bunch of assholes that were, at this point, it's basically coming out, that engineered the COVID-19 vaccine, or the COVID-19 virus, which, whether it was accidentally let out of the lab or deliberately fucking spread, again, depends on how far into the tinfoil hat community you're willing to wade, which will kind of influence what your stance on that is. Was it a lab leak? Was it deliberate? I'll let you make your own mind up on that one. But ultimately, same assholes, it comes out that, oh yeah, no, now we're messing around with avian flu because we're concerned this could be the next pandemic. And lo and behold, 6 or 8 weeks later, after this news breaks, it's in chickens, and now it's making the jump to cows and pigs. And oh, look, now we've got cases in humans in Colorado. What a fucking shock. And oh, hey, it's an election year. Go figure. So, weird how these things are 4-year cycles, huh? But ultimately, they're now releasing all this, part of me wants to say it's fear-mongering, where they're saying, oh, this could have a mortality rate of up to 25%. 1 in 4 people that get this are going to die. You got to get a vaccine. We can have vaccines ready in 4 or 5 months for this. And again, I will not be taking any more of these horseshit mRNA shots ever. But the other side of that is, I get to thinking about this, right? And my conspiracy theory starts to flare up, and I say to myself, well, you got a bunch of global elitist motherfuckers who want to do 2 things. They want to reduce the population. They want to cull the population of the Earth. They want us to have less humans on the planet, because their cult and their religion tells them that there are too many people on this planet for the Earth to sustain it properly, which is utterly horseshit. I mean, life will keep going on regardless of how bad we fuck things up, because it will adapt, it will overcome. The planet may not continue in conditions that are favorable to our species, but the planet will move on. The planet will be fine. So these fucking cultist motherfuckers who are utterly retarded in their logic and their approach to things, where they're, cutting down trees to put up windmills that don't actually benefit the environment at all. They put windmills in the ocean and it kills the fucking whales. They put windmills in the fucking fields and it kills the fucking birds. It does fuck all to reduce carbon emissions. They're horribly net loss fucking projects, and these pricks keep doing it and trying to act like they're trying to save the planet. Meanwhile, continuing to talk about eat the bugs because cows fart too much, and you will eat the bugs and that will be your protein. And then they want to say that farmers are the enemies because farmers, well, they produce the food, and that is literally one of the narratives now, that they're saying the food production is bad for the fucking environment. Farmers are the most responsible stewards of the land because it is how they get their livings and their livelihood. So these fucking idiot techno giants are saying, oh, well, farmers are, and the WHO and the fucking WEF who are trying to declare farmers the enemy. Well, that was also one of the first things Stalin did. It's realistically, this is all, why there's no climate crisis in China is because China's already a fucking communist shithole. So, and that may be cynical, that may be jaded. I'm all for being responsible with, I don't litter, I don't throw trash around, I don't leave shit where animals can get into it. I try to be responsible with how I deal with things. But, carbon dioxide is not a bad thing to be releasing into the air. That's what plants feed on, so plants can grow. You want to help the planet, you plant more fucking plants. It's really pretty basic. Stop knocking down forests to put up fucking windmills. Start planting more fucking trees, you fucking dolts. But again, I'm getting derailed here. My thought. So back to the avian flu that has made the jump from chickens to pigs to cows to people. That now they're saying will have a lethality rate of 25%. So, globally, we're talking about 2 billion people dead. So they've managed to not kill that many people. I mean, God knows how many people are actually going to die long-term with vaccine injuries, because we don't know, because there is no long-term study to reference. And we've got the death cult of the people trying to transition kids, which is effectively sterilizing them. So when they realize it was a fucking mistake because they were 5 and they like to play with Barbies and they were born a boy, or they like to fucking wear pink, or they like to wear fucking, blue and play with G.I. Joes when they were a little girl. So let's transition these motherfuckers. So when they are adults and realize it was a mistake, they are now sterilized adults, which again, death cult, population control, all that other conspiratorial horseshit. Very kind of it's weird how the pieces fit. I mean, every conspiracy theorist says that when they, they're sitting there with their pegboards with strings and all the 5th and 6th order connections they're making in their heads. But I'm just saying, when you look at things from the flavor of, there are elitist motherfuckers out there who want to reduce the population of the planet by a massive number, all of these fucking things sadly fall into place. So they're saying, okay, well, we can get this vaccine to stop people from dying from the avian flu, and you're going to have to take it. And there's two schools of thought on this thing that I've noticed over the last few days. And one school of thought is people like me. I'm not taking any more fucking experimental jabs. And there's people out there that are going, oh, well, if it's an actual viral vaccine, I'll take it. And I get to thinking about that, though. And I was like, maybe, and this is where, again, we're going into tinfoil hat territory. So get your your sheet foil Stetson, and here we go. Twist it up real tight. We're going to talk crazy shit. Now, theoretically, and this is just my thought, what if the whole COVID pandemic and the botched the mRNA jabs were more about establishing that distrust of vaccinations to get the people who are not going to be on board, not going to be pliant, not going to be sheep, riled up and worked up against the vaccine? And, you look at it in terms of scale. Okay, yeah, so you lose a few million people that got the jabs because they were being compliant and they were good little sheep. You lose a couple million sheep, but you now have all the fucking goats worked up and rounded up that they're all now, they're not taking anything ever again. So what if the avian flu vaccine is actually valid, and this shit, because I'm pretty convinced that whatever's out in the wild now is put there deliberately. It's probably a bioengineered strain. It's probably much more virulent and much more aggressive than a standard naturally occurring viral mutation. So let's say they manage to crank it up where it is 25% lethal, and they're going to kill off 2 billion people on the planet by making sure damn near everybody gets this shit. And the jabs are going to work this time. But now, all the people that would resist the movement, all the people that are going to fight back against the control, all the people that are going to say, fuck you, when they try and take over and just stop acting like they're doing things for the people and just say, you know what, this is how it works now. All the people that are going to push back against that are now way more susceptible and way more likely to die because they're not going to take what is actually a functioning and valid immunization against an engineered disease. Because, if they're going to engineer the disease, they might as well engineer the cure at the same time. I'm sure it's a similar process. So that could be, that's just one way of looking at it, I guess. And I'm not trying to make the world more paranoid or make things more crazy, but that's the way my brain works. That's the way things work when I start thinking about things. So what if the whole first pandemic was, again, like I said, deaths of convenience and a lot of, that was an accident. It was mismanagement. We panicked. We didn't know what we were doing. We were just trying to work with the best information we had. And all those people that died, yeah, that was horrible, but it was a mistake. It wasn't deliberate. And, you thin the herd a little bit. You lose some sheep, but you get a lot of, how much is that worth to somebody who doesn't really place any value on individual life? Somebody who doesn't really look at the individual and say that just because you exist, you have value. To someone like that, you actually provide more value as a sacrifice than you do as a living, breathing person, because when you're talking about people that view the mass of humanity as, cattle, as livestock, as there to support and enhance and enable your lifestyle, when you have to go out and wring a couple chickens' necks for dinner, you do it, and there's going to be more because they're going to do what nature says, and they're going to go along and they're going to fucking reproduce, and you're going to fill those roles. And when you're actively trying to reduce the population because you got more population than you think should be there, well, feeding a few of them off to drive your agenda is really not such a negative thing at all. And the fact that I think this way is probably one of the reasons I'm not happier than I am in my general day-to-day life. But realistically, this is also one of those reasons, like, head on the swivel, and I feel like I'm not going to get duped as easily as some people would. But then again, that may be my own personal arrogance and my own personal shortcomings where I think I'm smarter than I actually fucking am. But on the other hand, I also haven't heard anybody else saying this, but I also try to actively avoid like the deep conspiracy theory shit. I'm sure there's probably somebody else out there who already said this is a thing, but to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time I've heard anybody say it is when it's coming out of my own frickin' mouth. So that's kind of a thought process I had on that where, yes, maybe they did engineer a very lethal version of avian flu and they deliberately injected it into population centers where it's going to spread and go among humans and be very virulent, and they have a legitimate way of controlling it and curtailing it, but all the people that they would want removed from the equation aren't going to take the fucking shot because the last one was such a fucking shit show. So, yeah, that's kind of what's been rolling around in my head for the last few days, and it's got me being the giant ray of sunshine that I always am, and now it's going to be rolling around in your heads if you've actually sat here and listened to this inane babbling for this long. So for what it's worth, thank you for listening. As always, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the supporters. I appreciate the people who just tune in every week. I appreciate anybody who's listened this long, and I appreciate if you can share this with somebody who you think might appreciate it as well, because honestly, it is what it is. You know, I don't know if I mentioned this. Did I mention this? Yeah, we passed 20,000 downloads. Like I saw it when I was uploading last week's episode. Not by a lot. We're like 20,070 or something now. I don't even know the exact number off the top of my head. I'd have to pull it up and look at it, which I don't usually do while I'm actually doing these recordings. But anyway, yeah, so we're a little over 20,000 cumulative downloads over the last, we'll be hitting the 4-year anniversary in August. So 3.5 years, 20,000 downloads. Not huge numbers, but they're my numbers. They're you guys listening and supporting the show, and that means a lot to me. Every episode I like to hope is going to be something that somebody finds some value in. But, like I said, this is very much a grassroots kind of thing. The fact that I have an audience that I do, where I have loyal listeners, people who actively tell me every week they're looking forward to hearing what I'm going to come on here and babble about. People that engage with me outside of just listening, where I get feedback. I run into people and I talk to them. And a lot of the other people, a lot of you guys are, other podcast hosts. Other, you guys have your own shows. You know what goes into this stuff. You appreciate that. For a lot of people, what I do is not easy. What I do is not the norm because I don't have a co-host. I don't have anybody besides me. I do all of this stuff myself, all the legwork, all the thought process, all the notes, the publishing, the editing, all the bullshit. And, some of the people who don't have shows but are listeners that reach out and talk to me sometimes or send me messages, or I run into in the group chats for other shows, and they say nice things about my show when I pop into the group chats for shows I listen to, which is always kind of fun and tickles me. But anyway, I digress. The point being, I really appreciate that people are listening to the show. I would appreciate it if you tell your friends about it. If you tell people you don't like about it, I don't care. Just get the word out there. Spread the word. If you're interested, if you want, I've still got a buttload of stickers here. I've got Aaron for President 2024 stickers that I need to get the hell out of here before the election, because then the joke changes and I'm going to have to change the date on the stickers or something. So, yeah, if you want some stickers, let me know. Just DM, direct message, email, whatever. Just, hey, Aaron, send me stickers. And then stick them up around the fucking place. If any of my fellow podcast hosts, because I know a couple of you guys have done this, where you put a sticker map where people can check in and upload a picture of their sticker, so wherever they are, and it makes a map and people can see where the show's getting spread to. If anybody wants to tell me how to do that and add it to the website, that'd be cool. I'd like that. But if not, that's cool too. But yeah, if you want some stickers, let me know. I'll be happy to send them to you. I'm more than willing to part with the price of a stamp to send something to somebody just for shits and giggles because they like what I'm doing. And I think some of the stickers are pretty cool. So, yeah, I guess that's all I got for now. So thanks for listening, guys. And for now, that's what I had to say. Thanks for listening to another episode, guys. If you liked what you heard, leave a comment, leave a review, leave a rating. Go to ihadtosayitpodcast.com, sign up for the mailing list, interact with the show. Click the links, sign up for the Patreon, join the Discord, come and interact, be a part of the show. Buy the merch, support your favorite creator, or support me. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Till next time.